Quick disclaimer before you listen. The World's Okayest Medic Podcast is an educational and commentary platform produced and recorded by me. What we say on here is not endorsed by any of our employers, and we are not speaking on behalf of our employers. Our commentary is our own. Finally, remember to follow your local protocols.
All right, James Johns, you and I have peripherally communicated over the last several years, kind of virtually have gotten to know each other a little bit, and you offered to come on to the podcast to talk about these mobile stroke unit things.
Sure.
Because you heard that I'm a skeptic, and you're like, I want to come on and try to change your mind. And I would love to hear what you have to say. My dad came on here before, the one time he was on the podcast. He's going to come back on, especially now that I have AI software and can very easily edit out all the ums. I mean, it was like a 5-hour ordeal last time, but he told me he's a believer in the mobile stroke units.
Well, that's good.
Which kind of surprised me to hear, but yeah. So I'll stop talking. Tell me about what you do, your unit, and what you believe in.
So right now there's 15 active programs in the country. Most of those are found in urban settings, and that may have a little bit to do with some people who are naysayers, because you throw a rock and you're hitting a stroke center. So it's like, well, why would I wait for this truck and go through this whole process? The big thing here in Florida and some of the other places that are trying to get the trucks now, Florida has 67 counties, and over half of those don't have adequate stroke care, or the ALS unit transporting has an extended time to get to the stroke center.
Okay.
My mom, she died of a stroke. She had 3. And unfortunately, the way the process went, she was taken to the wrong hospital. There was a delay in care. She had to be transferred. And, once it was over with, the deficit she had is what she was left with. And that's the main thing, is try to prevent some of that. So the first truck here in Florida was actually in Alachua County, which is Central Florida, which is considered rural. That's Gainesville, the home of UF, if you're a UF fan. And they've been up a little over 2 years now. And they actually had a study published that they did in March of 2025 in the AHA and the stroke portion of the AHA, kind of going over some of their numbers and stuff. And I've got that. If you'd like a link to it, you can look it up. And what they found was the year or so they did this study, it was a retrospective study. They looked at rendezvous with other EMS agencies, getting the patient to the ED. They showed when the mobile stroke unit rendezvoused with an ALS unit, the dispatch to door time was around 28 to 29 minutes versus 73 minutes total for a normal ALS unit. And then their needle time, which is the time they gave T and K, was around 41 to 44 minutes versus about 104 minutes versus if you came into the ED via ALS. And then if you had an LVO and had to go to the lab to have the clot removed, they were getting about an 81 to 92 minute time frame, where on average that's taking 138 minutes. So I kind of fell into this job, so to speak. All the ones here in Florida are a joint unit. So I'm actually a firefighter paramedic with the Villages Fire Department, and they technically own the license through the state of Florida to operate the unit, but the truck was paid for by grant money and is labeled UF, big and blue, doesn't look anything like a normal ambulance would look. And we have a nurse and a CT tech who is assigned to the truck, who are UF employees, and we have 2 critical care paramedics who are assigned to the unit. So 4 crew total. The significance of that is, like I tell people here, I work part-time in the ED, which is literally across the street from this office where I'm sitting right now. I've seen multiple patients come in as a nurse, and you know how the hospital works. You come in, you go to registration, they've got to get you in the system before they can do anything, so they can add you to Chart, Epic, whatever system you're using. That takes time. Then you got to get into whatever room you're going to. Once you're there, you got to get a nurse assigned to you. The nurse comes over, depending on what part of the country you're in. The ratios here are 4 to 1 or 5 to 1. That nurse now becomes a 1-to-1 patient ratio, and somebody else has to now pick up those patients that nurse just lost because they're dealing with the stroke patient. Then the doc, doing whatever they're doing, has to break away, come see the stroke patient, do their initial assessment, and decide, hey, I think, we may be a T and K candidate. And that window varies from time to time. Some people say 4 hours, some say 4.5 hours. Then they got to go to CT. So they get in that CT line, depending on how busy your facility is. Go through the CT. Oh, we get here, the line's blown, the line doesn't work. Somebody's got to get a line. Oh, we can't get a line. Now we got to have ultrasound. So you go through this whole process. By the time they get back, that goes up into the Ethernet here to some radiologist sitting in his underwear at home reading these scans, make his read. That comes back to the doc, who's again not sitting at their laptop or their computer. Finally, they get around and say, hey, we're going to give T&K. I've seen it happen over here across the street where literally I had 30 seconds to pull the T&K from the Pyxis, calculate the dose, and push it before we're outside the window because it just took so long. And anywhere on average around here from an hour to 2 hours to make that decision based on all the things that have to happen to determine if the patient's a candidate or not. Where everything I just mentioned to you, we're doing in the back of the mobile stroke unit in 20 minutes because you have a CT machine that's dedicated to you, a CT tech that's dedicated to you, the 2 paramedics, the nurse, and the neurologist is on the screen via telehealth. So all this happens in 20 minutes. And I can make a pretty fair assumption for Florida. If you put my truck at the back door of any ED, time-wise, I'm going to blow that truck. I'm going to blow the ED out of the water as far as times go, as far as getting T&K on board and making appropriate transport decisions.
Okay. I think that's one of the misconceptions I might have had, because I've always had the impression that the mobile stroke unit is going to show up and dick around on scene for an hour and a half doing all kinds of assessments when we could have just taken the patient to the hospital. So what's your flow like when you get a patient? Can you let's say you get called for a stroke, and I find my mom at the kitchen table, she's aphasic, she's got facial droop. I last saw her an hour and a half ago. I call 911 and you guys show up. Like, can you from start to finish take us through a call?
Sure. So I can tell you, like today, they're on their 6th call right now since 8 this morning.
Really?
Yeah. So are you familiar with the Villages at all in Florida?
Is that the swinger colony?
That's the place.
Okay.
That's the place.
Okay.
I tell people,
yeah, we're going to move there, actually. No, I'm kidding.
I tell people it's heaven's waiting room. These people, are all old, have comorbidities. They got one foot in the coffin, one on a banana peel, and hoping something bad doesn't happen, right? So what normally happens is, for the Villages, if a call goes out, since we're a Villages unit, but we are a regional asset. So you got to look at that. We do rendezvous with other counties. But if we catch a call, depending on where it is, we're auto dispatched for certain CAD calls. I know you're a fan of the CAD system and you love it, right? So
I love the CAD system when it works.
Right. The thing is, though, there's so many stroke CAD cards. We're not all of them because we would go to everything, right? So very high acuity. I'm pretty sure it's a stroke, based on the CAD notes. They automatically tone us out when those calls go out to the ALS unit. Immediately, all the crew has a cell phone. Immediately, they pick up the phone and they're on the phone with the neurologist in Gainesville, which is about an hour and 20 minutes from here. So they're conversing the whole time, getting the signs and symptoms, trying to get the patient. The key things we ask for, I need your name, your date of birth, so I can try to look you up in Epic to see if you have a hospital chart so the neurologist can review your chart. The CT tech can get you logged into the system and get the CT machine spun up and at least get you loaded to do the scan. And then, we ask for basic things. I need basic vitals. I need the blood sugar, since that's one of the key, mimickers of stroke. If the sugar's low, I need you to try to correct the sugar problem, see if they still have those symptoms. What are your signs and symptoms? What's their height and their weight? Height and weight is strictly for, doing flight stuff. The weight is to calculate the T&K dose before we get there. So we know if we're going to give them T&K, we can just pull it, dual verify it, and push it. And the height portion is for the vent in case they crump and we have to, intubate them and put them on the vent. And then once we get on scene, the big thing we ask crews, if you can get 2 bilateral IVs, 20 gauge or larger, mid forearm or higher, because chances are we're going to do a CTA on them, and you can't do that in the hands. Those veins tend to blow and don't do well, cause all kind of problems with it blow. So once we walk in the door, the nurse is on the phone. A lot of firemen are, what's a good word? Sensitive, because he or she would blow right past them, not, say, hey, how you doing? And go straight to the patient. Well, they have 5 minutes once they get on scene to go do a full NIH assessment on the patient, despite what's already been done. And then they're talking to the neurologist the whole time. The neurologist may have extra questions. And at the same time, the paramedic goes to the lead paramedic on scene and says, hey, what have you done? Have the vitals changed? Did you get IVs? Anything that they didn't get clarification on prior to arrival. Within that 5 minutes, the nurse has to make a determination if they're going to admit the patient to the truck. And the key thing is they have to be 18 years old or older. And then they have to have a last known well with symptoms within the last 24 hours. If it's over 24 hours, nobody's going to do anything different for them. You might as well just take them on to the hospital. And then the key signs of stroke, which, everybody knows what the signs of stroke are. So any of those things, we're going to admit them to the truck. once we take the patient from the ALS crew and they're on our stretcher, they belong to us. We're not going to hand them back. We're not going to do anything different. They get in the truck. As soon as they're in the truck's stretcher is elevated. They slide straight in the CT machine. The nurse and the CT tech hit admit on their computer screens. The CT starts spinning up. We get them settled, and then we all jump out of the truck. It takes about 2 minutes for them to do the scan, and the scan actually shows up within a minute and a half on my cell phone. The neurologist is looking at it real time, talking to the patient real time. There's 4 cameras in the truck. They can zoom in and actually watch pupillary response. That's how detailed the cameras are. So they're going down when we're doing assessments in the truck, watching everything that we're doing, asking questions. Once the scan's done, we jump back in the truck. They do an assessment on the scan. The doc determines then if they think it's a stroke or not, or if they want a CTA to get a more detailed view of the brain. If that's the case, we'll set that up. CT technology.
You can do a CTA in the ambulance.
Absolutely.
Because that was one of the questions my dad had. He was like, he goes, I just have to ask. He's like, what is the image quality like in these ambulance, like a CT scanner in an ambulance? He's like, can't imagine it would be that great.
Let's see if I can pull one up. Maybe you'll be able to see it. But yeah, we do a CTA. Usually we can have all their labs done, the dry CT, the CTA done, have it sent and processed in under 20 minutes.
Do they, my tertiary care center where I go to all the time, they love to just automatically repeat all of the imaging. So will the hospitals use that CTA and CT scan, or do they I mean, I'm not a radiologist, but that looks pretty damn good.
And if it's an LVO, it will actually show you where the LVO is. And then the big one they can do is it'll actually rotate the brain 360 degrees one way and 360 degrees the other way. So they could.
Yeah, if you're not watching this on YouTube, James is holding up his phone showing me the images. So those look, for my untrained eye, those look pretty good.
And the thing with this truck here.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So there's only 2 trucks in the country that have a 32 slice CT machine. One's in UCLA and one is in the Villages of all places. All other trucks have a 16 slice, which is much poor quality. You don't get to see as much of the brain, so it can help us make better decisions on where to take them, where the stroke is, that kind of stuff.
Okay. But ultimately, are you just trying to find out whether they have a bleed or not so you can give the TNK, or what's the goal of the imaging?
Well, so A is determine the type of stroke. Is it an occlusive stroke or are they having a hemorrhage? Because if they're having a hemorrhage, there's only 2 places they can go to. We have a hospital up the road. It's an HCA facility. They go there if the helicopter can't fly. And it's about 20, 30 minutes from where we are by ground. And if the helicopter can fly, we will meet them at LZ. We've had predetermined LZs throughout the county. We'll meet them at LZ and fly them to Shands, which is about a 20-minute flight. So it's. You there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you just paused out for a sec. You were saying if the helicopter, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, if the helicopter can fly, we'll fly, meet them at the helipad, or they'll meet us at LZ. We'll fly them to Shands, which is about 25 minutes from here, or we'll drive them to Ocala, which is about 30 minutes by ground. The thing a lot of people understand is all the reversal agents, you can think of or you would want, we have on the truck to stop the bleeds. So if they bleed, we can go ahead and push those meds right then. Try to get the bleed stopped, because there's only so much space in your head, and once you fill that space up, bad things happen. So I got a list right here I can tell you.
Well, like K-Centra and vitamin K and all that kind of stuff.
K-Centra, Arixtra, I mean, anything on the truck, we can reverse.
This is really quite advanced.
Yep. And that's why the nurse has to be stroke trained, and all the medics have to be critical care certified, because they're pushing all these meds. And then we have, a long list of drugs you can do, because our blood pressure goals here, if they're having, if they're having a ischemic stroke, we got to keep it between 185 over 110 is what is optimal, is what they want.
Sure.
And then if they got a hemorrhagic stroke, it's 140 over 90. So we have.
What do you guys use for blood pressure control predominantly? Like
Nicardipine is the go-to. They have Cleverprex, but the flight crew don't like to use it because it comes in vials. They don't carry it, so we have to hand them extra vials. They just don't want to run out. So we've got to understand the neurologist, hey, if they're going to fly, if you will, do cardine. So that's what they normally do. But so that's on the blood side. If it's obviously if there's an occlusion, we can see they're going to say TNK as long as the patient's not on Eliquis or some other blood thinner. We check their INR, we do all the labs in the back of the truck, and then we push the TNK. And then we just had a stroke center literally 20 minutes from here. It's another UF facility in Leesburg. They just became a comprehensive stroke center. They have the interventional neurologist there who can actually go in and remove the LVO if he sees the LVO. And the process there would be we go straight to the ED, hand off the paperwork. They get them checked in. We bypass the ED and literally like going to the cath lab, for somebody's heart, drop them on the table, and we literally watch them pull the clot from the person's brain sitting there.
Do you guys only transport to comprehensive stroke centers?
Yes.
Okay, that's good because go ahead.
I will say yes. The only reason we would not is if we pick you up, and let's say you're having symptoms, but it turns out the neurologist says, I don't think it's a stroke. We've scanned you and all. I think it's a migraine.
Sure.
Then we'll take you to, the local hospitals like, hey, he's having a migraine. It's not a stroke. But we have had hospitals here that still will stroke alert you anyway, even though you've been seen by a neurologist, even though you've been given 2 scans. And it's like, wow. Yeah. And the first one is, I'm going to cover my butt. And then some doctors think, well, if I stroke alert the person, they'll move to the front of the line. It's like, that's not how this works. So
yeah, and you got to pump up those numbers.
And the good thing is right now, knock on wood, all the stroke programs in the country, we don't charge for service. So everything we do in the truck is free because all the trucks are covered by grants at the moment.
That was one of my questions. This is great and all, but like how financially feasible is this?
Well, right now it's all covered by grants. I told people because there's a lot of money in the villages that this truck will probably never go away because the villagers love it and they don't want it to go anywhere. But like anything in medicine, right, it takes 10 to 12 years to show its value, let the insurance company see, what the cost benefits are. So they're going to approach Congress and the insurance companies this year to try to start getting reimbursed for part of it because it's not just the money that the truck's going to charge for the things it's doing, but I'm decompressing the ED. I'm shortening hospital stays by 2 to 5 days on average. You're not going to skilled nursing facility or rehab for months and months afterwards because so far this truck, the one here in the village, has only been up 100 and some odd days. We've treated 300 patients. And I can tell you, like watching somebody with full left-sided weakness, all the stroke symptoms on one side, you give T&K and they walk out of the hospital the next day with no deficits.
How many patients have you given TNK to out of those 300?
58.
Okay. All right. That's a pretty meaningful number.
Yeah, it's big. I mean, if you get into big numbers that we did, let me see where, and I can send you all this if you want to see it.
Sure.
So on average, our door to lab time is 2 minutes. Our door to CT time is under 4 minutes. Our door to T&K time is under 14. The fastest we've done is in 6 minutes from the time we got to your house to the time we're pushing T&K. The door to you being at the IR table is under 55 minutes. So, I mean, that's way faster than any hospital's ever going to do it just because you're not laying there, thing going on with you, right? You have to go through the whole process. Statistically, if you transport by our truck on a national average, if you pull the statistics, only about 10% of patients are treated within 90 minutes of stroke symptoms, and only 1.4% are treated within 60 minutes. But we're treating 53% of patients in 90 minutes and 30% within 60.
I mean, those numbers are hard to argue with. I was looking up the cost benefit analysis thing, and it looks like, there's not a ton of data on it, but the stuff I was able to find, it looks like you either break even or, as you said, you save money in the long run because of all the rehab costs. My concern is like, if you don't have this grant money and you know how like fire chiefs and county governments are,
Yep.
They're like, we don't care about the downstream. We're looking at the immediate cost of this. So do you see that as a barrier? Like, is this grant money going to run out or?
I mean, I think it depends on where you are. So there were 20 some odd, it depends on what you look, what the number is, of these units at one time, of these programs at one time, and they're down to 15 because several have shut down. I think the one in Ohio and Cincinnati shut down not too long ago. And a lot of the reason there, I think, was because of how close they were, and they were in an urban center. And these trucks really weren't designed for urban centers because you're just so close, right? I think the more ones will benefit. And I think they have to be attached to a teaching hospital because they get all the grants and all this extra money. And that's what this one's attached to University of Florida. So that's the big thing with it. And, you got to be proactive in gathering the data. So even after we drop you off, the nurses collect all this data for you. And it's called red caps. So they check on you a week later, a month later, and 90 days later to see how you fared, how you progressed, or do you still have deficits? Do you have a secondary stroke, all this kind of stuff. And we're tracking all this, and all this stuff is getting published and put out to show, hey, there is a benefit to this. We are changing people's lives. We're reducing costs long term, short term. And I think, once not taxpayers, but the government and insurance companies see this, they'll understand. Because what's the difference between me charging you for a CT in the back of the truck versus you get the same bill at the hospital if I'm doing the same exact thing? So I think that will benefit them a lot. I don't think the grants will go away anytime soon. Like I said, the truck here that's in the villages, there's 3 here in Florida in our program. We have 1 in Gainesville, 1 in Jacksonville, and 1 here. And they're trying to add another truck. But it all depends on where you are. And all these people love the truck. I think last year, just the villages alone had 650 strokes. And we just started rendezvousing with the surrounding counties. So we're trying to get in with Lake County. They had 2,100 strokes last year. Sumter County right next door had 800 and something strokes. So like I said, we're not going to catch all of them, but if I'm catching a percentage, I'll change those people's lives. And somebody asked the other day, they said, well, if you're responding to all these counties and you're rendezvousing, how do you decide where to go? So that's the medic's one of his jobs, because they're good at triage and stuff. We've had 3 calls at one time, and the medic say, okay, who can I do the most good for? We had one that had downtime of 2 hours, one that had a downtime about 1 hour and 15 minutes, and a lady who just literally fell out in the park 10 minutes ago. So obviously we went to the 10-minute lady, gave her T and K, and by the time we got to the ED, she had fully resolved. They went to take her to the table, thought it was the LVO, but we already cleared it, and she walked out the next day. So that's kind of how that process works, is triage. And I think the more people you have buy-in and the more people you start doing these great things for, I think the money will come. Grants are what they are. Depends on, what you're doing. The studies are key, showing that you're doing good things to try to get them to keep giving you money. The program share, like I said, has been up 2 years total since the one in Gainesville started. I don't see it going away anytime soon, because we're not a city or a county asset per se. We cover 60 square miles. So you can be 60-mile radius and call us. And people are like, well, why would I drive 30 minutes to you to meet the stroke truck? I'm like, because it's going to take an hour or 2 hours at the hospital for them to do the same thing that I'm going to do in 20 minutes, and I'm going to treat them right there. So time is brain, and I have to trying to get paramedics to get out of the mindset of, I'm 10 minutes from the hospital. Right, I got it. But you're going to put them somewhere. What happens to them in an hour, in 5 hours, and the next day? And we're terrible at thinking about that, the long-term outcome for the people we pick up. So I was like,
Oh, yeah.
think of it like this. If it was your mom or dad, husband, wife, whoever on the table, would you want them to get this scan and this medicine all in an hour and a half to 2 hours, or you want it in 20 minutes? Well, 20 minutes. Great. I want them to go back to be as normal as possible. And like I tell people, for me, because my mom and her situation is kind of personal to me. So I drive my crew, and they'll tell you I'm kind of a whip cracker, so to speak. I was in the military for 24 years, but it's not because I'm trying to be mean. It's because I want you to do a good job.
Do you have a lot of buy-in from your staff? I take it you guys have a good crew.
Oh yeah, the other trucks wish they were like my crew is, because if we're going to change something, I ask them for, hey, what's your opinion? What do you think? You want to try this? You want to try that? Make sure they have buy-in. They feel like they can come to me with anything. Say, I want to try this process. Do you think we can try it? And we'll try it. We'll run it for a week, 90 days, how long we're going to try it, and say, hey, did it improve the times or did it not? And they all like coming to work. They actually all want to be busy.
Good.
They come in here and take their shoes off and say the Q word and do all the things to try to get calls. And like today, they're on call 6 or 7 right now, so they're all excited.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I thought could be a stumbling block. Just knowing paramedics and knowing firefighters, I could see potentially a mobile stroke unit going up, and you get some of the old fogies who are just kind of crusty and burnt out, or like, oh, I want to get on that stroke unit and like do nothing all day.
Well,
So
we had a guy initially that hired on here and quit orientation because he realized how busy it was going to be. But one of the medics we have here, he's been a medic for 22 years, and he was in that mindset. He said he even told me later, he said, I was kind of burnt out, hoping it was going to be a little slower paced. He goes, but coming over here and seeing somebody that has deficits, they're having a stroke and their life's fixing to be altered forever. And then 20 minutes later, they're talking and acting perfectly normal. He goes, man, I love my job. He goes, you like rekindled that fire in me, and I love it because I'm seeing a difference.
it's kind of like that with the blood thing I've found. There's been some medics like that who have been like, oh, this is bullshit. We don't need this. Like, we're so close to these trauma centers. And then they actually give it, and they're like, "That was awesome! Like, totally made a difference. Like, they would have died without it."
Yeah, yeah.
And it almost like they get this zeal for the job that they had kind of lost over the years, just because you really see the improvement in in the patient that you don't see, like when you transport a STEMI or, things like that. You drop them off and they're in the same condition you found them. And
Well, the other thing we do with the crews here is my crews have a standard. They have to call the crews that we picked up their patients within 24 hours to let them know what happened. Like, here's what happened to the patient. Here's what we gave them. Here's the outcome. Here's where they are now. So the crews tend to like that because they get feedback on what they did matter. And initially, like I said, when we stood this up, there was we have 2 crews, so it's 8 people total, including myself as the manager. We have 6 part-time paramedics that backfill if the full-time guys are out. Like I said, we have 2 full-time nurses, a part-time nurse, and then 2 full-time CT techs in the backfill. But I'm hiring for a paramedic actually tomorrow because we had EMTs. We got rid of one of the EMTs and they're putting the medic on. I got 7 applications and now I'm getting swarmed today with applications. All these people wanting to get on the truck because they've heard and seen the things like, hey man, I want to be on that truck. I'm like, man, you just got to put your application in when it's open. There is a lot of stroke education that goes on the front end. You have to go through all the nursing stroke education they go through in the hospital. You have to be NIH certified. You have to be rank and score certified. And then if you're not critical care certified, UF requires you to go to the UF critical care program and, test out and do all that kind of stuff. But the reason I was able to get 2 paramedics, I was able to convince UF, who doesn't understand EMS at all, that for about $12,000 more a year, you're going to have way more capable hands in the back of the truck that can do more for the patient instead of the EMT just running lab work for you and say, what do you need me to do?
do you get, I know the hospital funds it or through the grant. Have you guys gotten any pushback from the hospital because you're doing the job of in-hospital staff?
No, I mean, some of the in-hospital staff is still kind of leery about it because they don't understand it. It's new to them.
Mhm.
Oh, they're really good about it. And the benefit for the fire department, the medics, is UF splits all the salary. So any overtime, I just keep track of it. Every quarter, I send it to the hospital pays the fire department back. So the hospital's splitting the salary for everybody.
What do the neurologists like to work with?
They're good. So one of the things we have to do before we can get on the truck is we have to do 3 or 4 ICU rotations on the neuro floor. So Dr. Khanna is the head neurologist here. She's been doing it for 30 years. Follow them around on rounds. They explain a lot of things. They do rounds or case studies, I should say, weekly that we can sit on if we want to. They're constantly adding new education stuff up. Like we got to go to the stroke conference here coming up in Orlando week after next, and then there's a big stroke conference going on in New Orleans in February. We're going to be there. They want to load the truck up, drive it to New Orleans, and have it in the showroom because there's only 2 in the country like it, and they want to show it off. Siemens wants to show it off.
How much of that truck cost?
Oh, about $2.5 million. By the time you add the CT machine to it, I mean it's a beast. It's big. So think it's a quad cab, Freightliner front end with a massive back end on the back.
So dumb question. You're not doing these scans while bumping down the road.
No, to do the scan, the truck has to be stopped, parked, and then there's an e-stop button on the scanner that completely locks it down, and then it takes about a minute to spin it up. So that's what the CT tech is doing on the cruising side, just determine if they're going to take the patient or not. So by the time they get back, it's ready to load the patient in. And maintenance wise, the CT tech or the CT machine is probably the one piece that will cause the most problems because those things weren't designed to bounce down the highway. But we've had very few problems with ours. It tends to work really well. I've asked other people, and they really had a lot of problems with theirs either. So I guess it was a pretty good design.
Has anybody had an accident with the truck?
Yeah, the one in
That's not a phone call I would want to make to the boss.
Gainesville was actually making a left turn, and some kid with headphones in, not paying attention, slammed right in the side of him. So, yeah.
What kind of maintenance, what kind of like checks have to be done on the CT scan? I can't imagine what.
I mean, so in the morning they come in, they have it's called a Phantom. It looks like a big, huge piece of plastic that weighs about 18 pounds. They go out there, they set the Phantom in, and the machine slides over just like it's your head. And it knows the densities of that Phantom and how it should look. And on the screen, it should be a clear kind of grayish circle. The CT tech kicks everybody out, puts their vest on, and then does the maintenance check. It goes through self-check just like anything else you turn on computer-wise. And then she hits scan. It scans, comes back, and says pass or fail. She verifies why it may have passed or failed, and then she logs it. And if there's any errors, the people from Siemens can go in all the way from Germany and backdoor into the system and determine exactly what the error was, why it did it, send an update or whatever, which I think that's only happened once. But that was because they had the Phantom sitting a little too high.
Gotcha. Who reads the scan? I know the neurologist looks at it, but does radiology
Yeah.
look at it?
Yeah. So the neurologist makes the first read right then to make the determination on treatment and care. And then it goes
Mm-hmm.
to Lake Radiology is the group they use here. So it goes off into the Ethernet. And like I said, some radiologist sitting in his underwear at his house is reading it, makes his calls. And
Okay.
very rarely have I seen them not concur with what the neurologist said. Because all the neurologists who look at this are not just like, fellows or new grads. These people are like strictly in a specialty to do strokes, and they're on call. So if you were the neurologist that day, hey, you got the stroke truck today. So you're answering calls for all 3 units. And then you're on the call. There's usually a senior doc on the call with you, just listening. And y'all kind of make a decision together on what you think, what you want to treat, how you want to treat it, what you see, transport destination, those kind of things.
And you may have said this already. You guys are up 24 hours.
Nope, we are only 8 to 8. Because no joke. So a stroke happens every 40 seconds, right, in America.
Okay.
The box told me, well, technically people don't have strokes at night. And I was like, well, I've been on the ambulance for 20 years and I picked up people at night that had strokes. But what they meant to say was most people
Wake up stroke.
caught at night. They wake up and have them. So Jacksonville, that truck is up 24/7, but they're only running, 2 or 3 calls a month at night. So, if you look at the cost benefit analysis, that doesn't, to pay for a crew, to pay for the station and all that stuff, it just doesn't make sense to keep them up at night.
Do you find there's a particular busy time?
Yeah, either when we first get here. So the crew's here at 7:30, and just like this morning, they had 2 stroke calls go out before 7:30. The crew got here and they walked in the door and said, "Hey, you got 2 calls just went out 5 minutes ago." So they immediately keyed up, went and CT, checked the CT on the truck, and called and said, "Hey, do you need us?" "Yeah, we need you." So they were out of the door before 8. But then it seems like at 11 o'clock is a weird time here, and it starts jumping off 11 o'clock. It'll die off around 4 or 5, and then 6 to 7:30, it'll happen again. I've had a couple
Late.
minutes.
How long is a late call?
So a turnaround on a normal call is about 2 hours from the time you leave here, get there, get the patient, do the scans, transport them to wherever you're going, and get back. So it's about 2 hours. I mean, the latest one they've had so far was 7:59. I had one guy, his wife had come here and made dinner plans the whole 9 yards, and he's from Kentucky.
Always.
And 7:59 it hit, and he's like, "Ah, shit," and then off he had to go.
Yeah.
Have fun, bro.
Yeah, that's like a flight though. That's like a late flight. I mean, it happens. It's part of the job. Well, cool. I mean, you've told me a lot I didn't know. I mean, I did have some misconceptions. I gotta say.
Well, man, if you're ever down this way, so I'm about an hour from Disney. So if you ever bring the kids down this way, holler at me. And if you ever want to come
Yeah, I would love to see it.
see the truck or ride around for a little while, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, I would love it. Do you have anything you wanted to add or?
I know, I just appreciate it. And like I said, I'm just trying to bring awareness to people of what the trucks are, kind of dispel some of the myths and rumors. And like I said, I'm not saying at all that the hospitals are bad. They just got their policies and procedures they have to follow, and they're super busy. And we're in season right now, so all the snowbirds are down, so it's crazy down here. But we're just, the things that takes a hospital hours and hours to do, we're doing in 20 minutes. And we're truly changing people's lives and keeping them out of the nursing home, keeping them out of rehab, letting them go back to around here playing pickleball and drinking beer and dropping
Going to swinger parties.
Swinger parties. I can tell you some stories about some parties.
Oh, I bet you can. Yeah, my buddy of mine, he's one of the state police medics here. He's getting ready to retire, and he went and he visited his aunt and uncle down there. And he's like, I know they live down there. Maybe I'll go see if they, he's like, I'll go check a place out and maybe we'll retire down there. And he's like, it wasn't until I got down there when I realized what the community is all about. He's like, I don't think we're going to be moving down there. He's like, it's really nice though.
It's very nice. So the same people that do the landscaping and the decorating for the villages are the same people that do it for Disney.
Oh, really?
Their landscaping budget a year is $28 million.
What's it cost to live there?
It depends on where you buy your house and how big a house you build. Like Shaquille O'Neal's building a house here, so that area is like super expensive. But then $300,000 or $400,000 or more for a house, and then all the fees that go along with it. But I mean, you don't have to leave the villages. All the restaurants you can imagine are there. Gun ranges, you name it, they've got. If you want to do it, you can do it in the villages.
Interesting.
Yep.
All right. Well, James, this was eye-opening. I'm glad you came on. I'm glad you reached out and wanted to come on.
Well, if you have any questions or anything else or want to do it again sometime, let me know. I'll keep you up to
All right, will do. Here, I'm going to hit stop recording real quick. And then